Awesome. So this is going to be kind of an introduction, but tonight's topic is riding moguls and specifically how to, for one, plan your turn. So how to plan where you're going to turn and how you can use the bump to create energy to propel you into your next turn. And so kind of our two big things. So number one is how to turn in a mogul, and number two is kind of planning that turn. So maybe creating some space so you can plan a turn, so you can use the mogul to create some energy into your next turn. Those are kind of our two big topics. And this is a total open discussion. So if you have burning questions about riding moguls, or if I'm talking about something and you just want to stop me and ask for some direction, I would love that. The more questions you guys ask of me, the better, the easier it is for me to deliver what you need to know. So, anywho, I'm going to kind of tag off from there. But before I go, before I start, does anybody have any burning questions about moguls right now? Like, oh my gosh, I've been riding moguls and I just got this crazy question. I got to ask it. Okay, so I'm going to take that as a no because I heard nothing. So I'm going to go to a screen share and share a couple of quick videos with you. Um, Okay, so right here on my screen, if you guys can see this screen right here, you'll see I'm on a YouTube page and I'm on our progression sessions page. So it's progression sessions 95, and you're gonna see on our YouTube Shorts, I've put a few videos here for us to kind of look at. And one of the videos I want to start with is just straight up looking at some snowboarding moguls. And is anybody here, before I keep going, is there any skiers here in the group, or do we all have snowboarders? Any skiers? Nope. Okay. So right here, I'm going to start with this video. So this is me from above riding a set of moguls. Okay, that's not working. Not sure why that's not working. There we go. I'm going to play it one more time so you guys can see it one more time. Maybe I'll mute it here. And so what I'm going to ask you guys a little bit is just kind of some of the first things that you notice about this clip. So when you watch me ride these moguls, what do you see? What do you notice about my body movements, maybe my upper body posture and how my board's moving through the snow? I'll pause it right there and I'll let you guys go for it. So anybody have anything that they noticed about watching that video?
I noticed your upper body is pretty stable. There's not much movement in your upper body. Your head is at a pretty similar level as well.
Cool, cool. I like that. Yeah, yeah. So you notice that the body's pretty stable, so that would mean that the lower body, so the legs were probably doing most of the work, right? So the steering and all that kind of good stuff and the absorption and everything else. Anybody else notice anything else from the video? I'll keep playing. Anything
I,
else standing out? Yeah, go for it.
I feel like the body position is very aligned with the board.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's a little bit of separation in some of the turns, but for the most part, I try to stay with the board. So a little bit of separation, but for the most part, when the board turns, I turn as well. Yeah, cool, cool. Anybody notice anything else? Okay, well, one of the things that I want to draw your guys' attention to in this video is you'll kind of see how when I hit the bump, you'll see my legs come up pretty quick. So when I hit a bump, you'll see my legs come up to my body pretty quick. And what's happening there is I'm actually using the bump and the edge of my snowboard to create some energy that's actually going to push my legs to me. And as it pushes my legs to me, it allows me to really release from one turn and move into the next turn. So I use the face of the bump as I turn into it to get basically a push back from the mountain that propels me into my next turn. So that's when I think about riding bumps, that's something I'm looking for in the bumps. And as snowboarders, we don't necessarily make the shape of bumps. So those bumps are usually made more by skiers than they are by snowboarders. So sometimes the shape can be a little erratic, and you might see that too. So you might see that these turns aren't always perfect. I'm not always in the trough with the bumps, but you will see that I kind of hit a bump and I pull up and go over the bump, over the bump, over the bump, over the bump. So right here, I've got another video, same thing, but this is going to be from, gonna get sure it's try to scroll to the right spot. I'm kind of new to using this YouTube Shorts part, but here's me from below, so you can kind of see that board action as well. Right there, you'll see that I'm kind of hunting for a turn a little bit. So looking at this, looking at what we just saw right there when it comes to bumps, what are some of the skills when you think about riding bumps if you weren't actually in bumps? What are some things that you think you might need to be able to do before you even get into these to be able to apply short turns, get pressure out of bumps, all that kind of good stuff? What do you guys think? Anybody?
I think one of the skills is the ability to find a moment where you can get the rebound energy from the bumps in order to retract your legs.
Totally, totally. Yeah. So being able to figure out what part of the bump that is, right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. So being able to read the terrain. Um, I think that when I'm riding bumps, I'm trying to find the face of the bump. So like if I'm going across a bump, then I'm looking at like the uphill side of the bump. Like that's probably going to be my best place to create rebound energy. Now, if I'm riding across a set of bumps and I'm hitting the face of a bump, right? So I'm coming at with a little bit of speed and I'm hitting the face of the bump. Would I want to be on like a really high edge or would I want to be on kind of a mellow edge? What do you guys think?
Mellow edge.
Yeah, totally, totally. So if I was to set a higher edge, where do you think that higher edge would be if it was going to be anywhere? Anybody? So if I was going to set a higher edge in the bumps, I'd probably try to set it on the back side of the bump. So I've got another clip here. This is kind of part of another video, but I'm going to play it for you guys real quick. And let me know if it's not coming across through Zoom very well. I can send all these links into the chat so you can see them a little bit better. But I'm going to fast forward a little bit in this video. And I'm going to unmute. I start by licking my nose. So right here is kind of the front of the bump. So this is where I'd be kind of pressuring down. And then right here on the and so there I'm pressuring down. Now I'm using that rebound energy to get over the mogul. And then I'm setting into my next turn. So right here, you'll see me nose is down, setting into the next turn. Sorry, it's kind of playing through a little bit here, but and then right there is basically where I can kind of set a little bit higher of an edge. So if you look back there just a smidge, let's see if I can get it there. You'll see right here, I'm on a little bit of an edge. And if at any point, that's probably my best place to be able to like actually have a little bit heavier edge set.
So,
So,
so you mean like when you're in the trough, you can set a higher edge?
yep, yep. Or when I'm hitting the next bump. So I go over one and I'm turning against a bump. That allows me to actually put a little bit higher edge. And you can see my edge angles pretty, not super high, but pretty high right here, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of matching the terrain, but, and then I'm able to take that. And I'm able to take that kind of across the hill and into my next bump, I guess. And I actually have a video of a skier doing this too. So this is my skier friend. he's doing this too, and we can really see the action in the skis too here, where he hits the bump, rebound energy sends his legs to him, goes into the next bump, rebound energy sends his legs to him, going to the next bump. And so, a question for you guys when you're watching this or when you're thinking about bumps, what part of our board or of our skis would be like the most, like, where would we get that energy from? Like, what part of the board of the skis would be pushing into the bump to then rebound into the next turn?
The tail.
Yeah, totally. Yep, the tail. And I'd probably be finishing up, say I'm making a heel to toe turn. I'd probably be finishing up on my heel side, pressing into the bump, and then I would release and land on my toe side, which is what I showed in this little clip of this video right here. And I'll go back to it. I'll try to get right to the right spot. So see, it's right there. So that's where I've let go and I'm coming back down onto my toe side. So heel side hits, then toe side drives through. You'll see it again. There's where my legs come up to me. I'm using the bump to bring my legs to me. And then again, setting. So if we look at it here too, this is that downhill view. We might be able to see it again now that we've kind of broken it down a little bit. You'll kind of start to see that rebound energy come into play. Now, one of the common things that happens in bumps and in all sorts of terrain, but especially bumps, is that if we take that rebound energy, so that pushback from the bump, and we allow our bodies to be kind of stiff and it pushes through us and brings our head up and our body up. One of the things you mentioned, Vanessa, is that you saw that my head and shoulders stayed at a relatively low position or a relatively low line. If I allow my body to be affected by those bumps rather than just my legs, it's really, really easy for me to get bounced out of my path. So essentially, for me to have a very unpredictable next turn or to be like pushed in a line that I didn't necessarily intend. And so, has anybody here experienced that before? Like when it comes to your all's bump riding, I'm kind of talking about ideals, but what have you guys experienced?
I struggle from having a like pretty high edge angle, especially on my heel set edge, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like really easy to get all the balance, and like kind of miss that moment to for the best turn. So I have to like traverse several moguls before I can make a heel to toe turn.
Totally, totally get it. And my guess would be, I'm not seeing it because I don't have a video of you riding it right now, but if you look at this position, I'm going to go back to that same part of that clip right here, just a little bit back. Where is it? So you'll see right here, if you notice that my body in this position, right? It went forward on me. You'll notice right here that as I'm loading down on that heel side edge, you'll see that my shoulders and my head are still pretty far over my feet, right? And so often, especially when we're a little stressed or we're maybe moving a little faster than we want to, or that we feel comfortable, we'll push our board out. And so we'll push down with our back leg, maybe even pull up our front foot. But as we do, we'll push and we'll drive our head and shoulders back uphill. And when that happens, that basically not only like can create a heavy edge, but it also makes it really hard to release that heel side edge. So once our body is beyond the heel side, so if you guys could imagine this image right here, but my body was straight up, kind of where my cursor's moving, it would be really, really hard for me to then move into the next turn or release that heel side edge so make my board flat because my body is no longer over my feet. So you'll see right here in this position from heel to toe, I'm pulling my back foot toes up, right? I've got both my ankles bent, um, and I'm bringing my shoulders over my feet. So as those legs extend, they're pushing more or less pushing this part of my body up versus pushing my head up. And that might seem kind of counterintuitive, right? Like normally we think we want to be tall or straight or totally aligned over our board, but in this moment, if I was to do that, if I was to rise my head up and everything, there's a really good chance I'd be pushed off of my line.
What is your cue or your like like visual cue that to make sure that you have this awareness of where your head is? Because like when I make total heel turns, I'm like very occupy like reading the terrain instead of like realizing like what my body shape is.
Oh, that's a good question. So we're talking toe to heel. So this is a heel to toe. Let's talk about toe to heel. So this is from above, so maybe we can see it a little bit better. See if I can find an up image. So right here, I'm coming out of the trough, and I guess my visual cue is when I'm coming down on one bump right here, you're going to see that my eyes, maybe I can zoom in a little bit and you guys can see that. You guys can see what my eyes are looking downhill, and I'm actually looking at the face of the next bump. And so my head's looking at the face. I'm setting my toe side at edge or setting my toe side, and I'm looking kind of where the next face of the bump's going to be. From there, I'm able to plan, and I basically, it's the same move I did on my heel side, but I'm going to smack the tail against the next bump. And so we're going to see that real quick kind of happen in real time. Oops. Well, we will. We'll see it right here. So turn and then turn, and you'll see that board smack and turn, smack right there and turn. So you can see right there, I was kind of shopping for that feature. I was traversing across the hill until I could find that. And then when we talk about a low edge on our toe side, let me see if I can rewind a little bit and find a good position so you can see how I'm balancing over the toe side to make that move. So you'll see right here, this body position, I'm kind of loading up. I'm getting ready to make a move. My back knee is still a little bent, so I have some space to extend my back leg and kind of create that rebound energy. And part of that rebound energy also just comes from the momentum I have going down the hill. But you'll see right here that in this moment, my lead shoulder is pointing downhill. My head is relatively tall because I'm on my toe side, so that's more of alignment on my toe side. And then right here, I'm actually loading that. I just finished loading that tail. See if I can find another part. So that's the release. Just go back just a smidge to right there. So that's me pushing into the bump. And you'll see that my back leg's extended, my eyes are looking downhill, and I'm about to release that pressure and move into my next turn. I know that the image is kind of small, but hopefully you guys can see it a little bit. Keep the questions coming. What else do we have about toe to heel? I'm going to show you guys some drills you can do and all that kind of good stuff, but let's see if we understand it first.
So you're
Anybody?
using
Yeah.
words extend. What do you mean by that? Like at which phase do you extend? As far as I know, we usually or standard usually using flexed or retracted turn to ride moguls, but you also using extend. What do you mean by that?
No, that's good. That's good. So if I think about the shape of moguls and the shape of my body, right? So as I'm riding these, so trying to keep my head at a relatively similar level, you'll see, and I'm going to play this video again. Or actually, I can play that back part right there. You can see that the extension happens in the trough of the mogul. So between the moguls, you'll see right here, I'm going to make a turn. So I extend, retract, extend, retract, extend, retract, extend, retract. And so I'm pretty tall when I'm pushing through the turns, right? The only difference is when I'm tall on my heel side, I'm still keeping my shoulders and head over the snowboard. But when I'm tall on my toe side, you'll see that I'm pretty stretched out on the toe side.
So you're seeing, I'm not sure I understand trot, but like you're saying that basically the gap between the moguls, that's the place where you extend your leg, and the way you're riding on top of
Totally,
a
totally.
mogul.
Yep. So the space between the moguls is where I'm trying to extend and drive and steer my snowboard. So if I think about my legs themselves, kind of how they work, right? So if I stay really short, it's kind of hard for me to create an arc in a very small amount of space. So ideally, when I'm making turns, those turns I'm trying to make a round turn in as small a space as I can. And that round turn gives me time because of the shape of the turn to control my speed and everything. If I just did pivots here, I would basically pivot and then have a moment where I can skid and control, pivot, and then have a moment where I can skid and control. And albeit that can be really useful in bumps, it's not necessarily creating the flow from a or redirect a momentum that I'm looking for. So you'll see right here, again, in the troughs, I push to shape a turn, push and pivot to shape a turn. And you'll see that those turns are kind of round. Does that sort of make sense? Yeah.
And when you're shaping the turn, you're like shaping when you on top of the mogul rather than in the crowd.
Yeah. So the edge change is actually happening at the top of the mogul. So that's where I've got the biggest release. So if I come up here and you'll kind of watch, you'll see that as I go over the mogul, I release, and that's where the edge change is happening. So as I'm going over the mogul, I'm the most flexed. My body is the most condensed it can be, but it's a retraction move. So I'm bringing my feet to me. And at that point, the board is flat for a moment and it leaves one edge, and I twist the board and land on the new edge.
So
And that, yeah, go
when
ahead.
you retract, after you retract, you pivot your front leg and making the board turn.
Exactly, yeah. I almost steer with both legs, so it's not just a front leg, but it's both legs that'll steer the snowboard. So I move my front leg and I move my back leg around to kind of create an arc. And one of the things that I'm really trying to do here, and I can show it even better in this other video we've stopped on a few times. Let's see if I can get again to that spot, because this is kind of a slow-mo of it. So we can see right here. You'll see right here that I'm loaded up on the backside of a mogul. So I'm pressing into it. I'm on my heel side edge. And then when I go for the change, I'm right here. My board's pretty flat. And this really shows it because it's off the ground so you can see it. And then right here, I've twisted my snowboard. I'm landing on my toe side as close as I can to the downhill part of that mogul. So my back leg's bent, my front leg is pushing down because I'm trying to capitalize on as much ground cover as I can before I hit the face of another mogul. So now I have this, and this kind of has a little slow-mo clip of it. You can see the shaping right there through the toe side, and you'll see the same thing on the heel side here. So I come up and then shaping on the heel side. And you'll see that the pressure starts from the front foot pushing down and the back foot sort of follows through. So I'm starting with pressure over the nose, but then I apply pressure to the tail as well as I shape that kind of round turn.
I noticed that the image you just showed that
Mm-hmm.
you were like mostly looking downhill all the time instead of like looking sideways. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm looking at my next bump, and so it depends on how big my turns are going to be, right? So if I'm going to shop a little bit, so I'm going to try to like look across the hill and find that bump, so then my eyes are going to be going across. But if in general, I'm looking at best way to put it is I'm looking at the next 5 feet or the next 10 feet, somewhere around there, of where I want to place my snowboard. So in this instance, I'm doing pretty short turns. So my eyes don't really vary a whole lot side to side because I'm looking at the next 10 feet or the next 5 feet is going to be more or less downhill of me. But not totally. I'm not just staring downhill. My eyes aren't locked straight downhill. They're moving with where I want to place my snowboard.
So, on your like heel side, like how did you control your upper body, like not like throwing your head back?
That's a good question. So like on my heel side, when I'm hitting a bump, right? I'm actively, so I'm pressuring in, but I'm also actively pulling my front leg up and bringing my front leg to my chest. And so they're almost like those things are closing together. So when we think of retraction, there's one way to think about retraction. It's just like the legs are coming up, right? Like that's one way to think about it. And so I could be totally tall and bring my knees just right up in front of my body. But what I'm thinking about more is bringing my knees to my chest. So as
Okay.
I go over that bump, you'll kind of see that my knees come up to my chest. And so I wouldn't say I'm necessarily dropping my head. I'm not trying to drop my head, but I'm definitely trying to use that energy to bring my body close together. So knees close to my chest rather than knees in front of my body. Does that sort of make sense, Vanessa?
Yep.
Awesome.
So what's in your mind when you try to speed control about moguls?
Biggest thing in my mind when I'm trying to do speed control in moguls is I am trying to find space to do that. So when I'm thinking speed control, I know that a round turn, my board's designed to make a round turn. And I know that if I can take momentum and keep it moving along the length of my snowboard, I know that I'm going to have a less abrupt hits as opposed to my board being sideways. So I'm trying to find space to make a round turn. Everywhere I go, I'm trying to find space. Where's the space to make a round turn? And then the next bump that I can use to give me a push my board off the ground so that way I can make the next round turn. So I'm always trying to find space for a small round turn.
Is this speed control like mostly happening in the trough or
Um, it's I guess the bulk of it, right? So the most of the speed control. And I think, actually I'm gonna let you watch this again if you guys are seeing this okay. And you can tell me where you think it's happening. Where do you think?
I think when you leaving the maybe from the trot heading towards the top of the mogul, your board actually slightly pointed uphill, potentially slow you down, I guess.
A little bit, yeah. So the shape itself, I'm controlling speed through the shape. You're totally right. So there's the shape. Yep, you're totally right. And you can really see it on some of those heel side turns from this video right here. But
Yeah.
the speed control, I guess there's one way to think about it as being a moment. But if you see this video, and I can show you other angles of it too. Maybe I'll do that real quick. This is another angle from above or from below, I mean, is that I'm trying to create speed control the moment I change my edge. So the moment I can get my nose down on the back side of the bump, I'm trying to create a skid. And
I
I'm
see.
actually in. Mhm.
So like when you start extending your legs, there I can see a lot of splash.
Yep, you can see the snow move, right?
Yeah.
Snow's moving, moving. And so that right there, that extension of my legs is not only applying pressure to the ground, but it's also allowing me to spray snow, which means that I'm scraping the top layer of snow off, which is creating friction and slowing me down a little bit.
And so are you saying you skidding to the trout, then
Hmm.
extend
Yeah,
leg and then goes to okay.
yeah. So that's a skid. That's a skid right at the top. And that's actually like, albeit most of like a large part of the speed control, or I guess speed control, I think that is the right word, will happen kind of right at the end of my turn, just because now my board's sideways. I can turn it uphill. I can take that speed and take it up the side of a bump versus downhill. So, albeit a lot happens there, if I don't capitalize on that moment when my nose actually comes down the backside of a bump, if I don't capitalize on that, there's a good chance that I'm going to get too much speed to control once my board is sideways. So I have to get an early extension so that way I can spray snow high in the turn and manage that speed as it accelerates as my board's pointed downhill. I'm still managing speed even when I'm pointed downhill.
So it's
And I
like
do that.
so
What's
it's
that?
like skiing. So it's like skiing. You side slip onto the top of the mogul, like really
Yeah, a little
slowly.
bit. Yeah, yeah. So do you ski too?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Um, well, then you make these moguls. You're the mogul maker. Um, but yeah, so the ideally though, I'm trying to in that round shape, I'm trying to find every opportunity I can to control speed before that moment that I change my edge. Because if I'm sideways and I do everything I can and I'm trying to control speed there all in one spot or trying to slow down and not, it puts me in a harder position to actually be able to redirect and move into the next turn. But if I've managed my speed higher in the turn, it makes it a lot easier at the end to use that bump and redirect to the next turn. So in terms of drills, like how can we get better at this, right? Like that's kind of the end result that I'm showing you guys. And these bumps right here were kind of easy black bumps. They were slushy. It was big sky in April. So these were pretty easy ones. But how does anybody have any ideas? I've got a lot of ideas that I can show you, but on how we prepare to ride bumps. Like what can we do to build up these skills? Anybody?
Can-
Ski the east.
Ski the east. Okay. Big icy bumps. Yeah. Eventually you won't fall down, hopefully. No, but there's like some drills that we can do. One of them that I have right here that I took another video of, I just pulled this video up, is these are pivot slips. So this is just in a video from AASI of somebody doing some pivot slips. Now, albeit these pivot slips, what we're seeing right here, this might not be how we want to travel down bumps, but the thing that this drill would teach us is how to manage a skid while manage a turn while still facing downhill. So making a turn in a really, really small amount of space. This skid really, really helps us learn how to do that. And if you watch this rider, you'll see that board's going to bend a lot. So it bends, twists, he twists, and that separation allows us to steer our board underneath a relatively stable body. So if you're wondering how to build up, how can I ride bumps better? Getting good at this is going to be a really paramount to being able to ride bumps well. You'll notice that in this drill, this rider doesn't go from right to left. They're basically going straight downhill. And this is a really, really, really good skill to have if you're going to snowboard in bumps. So right here, you're seeing this same thing. The lower body's moving, the upper body is staying really stable. Has anybody ever tried this drill?
Yeah.
Only ski.
Only in skiing? Cool.
So
Well,
sometimes like when I make a really small turn on the mogul, it almost feel like making like a 180 on the flat ground. Is it similar to this drill?
no, so the difference is so when we make a 180 on flat ground, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're usually trying to as that pivot happens, we're trying to be like as light as possible, right? So if we think about a 180 on flat ground, it's like
Right.
we jump, our whole body lifts up, and we lose connection from the snow, we rotate, and then we get connection again. In this drill, this rider is actually, even in that pivot, they're trying to skid the whole time. So even as their board's pivoting around, they're twisting it, so they're maintaining friction. That's a good question, a really good question.
I see. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like the emergency brake.
Yeah, over and over and over. It is a little bit. And like this is just one piece to the puzzle. So this is a skill. And one of the things that I love about this skill too is that if you can skid downhill and just on your toe side, skid downhill and look downhill, I feel like that when I'm in bumps, sometimes I don't know where my next turn is going to be. And if I can manage this really well, then I get into the bumps and I can actually skid through the bumps without necessarily traveling way across the hill. So to me, this is a kind of a quintessential, like, if I'm going to ride bumps well, I got to be able to do this well.
Is this drill helpful for practicing setting a low edge angle?
Absolutely. And when it comes to riding bumps, if we set a high edge angle, so we're trying to apply pressure into the bumps, right? I'm trying to get low over the top of the bump and push into the next bump. But if I set too high of an edge angle, that becomes a carve. And if I get any moments of carving, or even at the bottom of my turn, I get a high edge angle and I get moments of chatter. That's where the board's trying to carve, but the momentum is going straight downhill. So there's no sideways momentum to actually make a carve go across the hill. If I set too high of an edge angle, it's going to end up directing me either stalling my speed through chatter, so taking that momentum I had, and if I hit a carve, it's going to try to push that momentum back up to my body and into the hill and make me fall down, or it's going to end up like a toe side carve happens a lot in the bumps where we go high toe edge and we end up going across the hill when we didn't want to, and sometimes speeding up as well because carves are fast. There's less friction. So yeah, a low edge angle in bumps is awesome. Definitely something that we want. I've got another video here I'm going to try to bring us to. Wait. I don't know what is happening there. Okay. You see if I can get my scroller is not working here. refresh this. Maybe this is, there it is. Now I'm in the right spot. Okay, so here's another drill that I did that same day in April where I'm learning to go across the mogul. So now I'm not really setting a high edge angle, but I'm trying to skid across and find that space. So you'll see me, I'm traversing across the moguls, trying to feel a relatively low edge angle and still let my legs move with the shape of the moguls. Find the turn, go across, let my body move with the moguls, and go across again. So we had the pivot slip, that helps us with the low edge angle, but looking at this video, what do you guys notice right off the bat with this video?
Or I think you're like pressing your tail and nose. Like it's the same movement, but you're just like traversing across bumps. Is
Totally,
that
totally, totally. So as I'm traversing across the bumps, I am pressing my tail down and I'm trying to set my nose on the next bump as soon as I can. So instead of the bumps becoming jumps, I'm trying to anticipate the bump, push into the backside, and then use that energy to then bring my body over the bump and push onto the downside as soon as possible. You'll kind of see how I press my tail in, retract, press my nose down, right? You guys almost see the tail come off the ground sometimes. And that's me really trying to get pressure on the backside of the bump. So this is another thing that you can do in bumps at a slow speed, but it's different than just absorbing the bump. I'm actively trying to like press on the backside of the bump as much as the front side of the bump. So basically finding space to slow down. And here I'm not going very slow because I don't feel like I need to. Like I feel controlled because the more time I spend on snow, pressing down the backside of the bump, the more control I feel going into the next, obstacle.
So is the pressure along the board going back and forth
It is. Yep. Yep.
while
And
your center mass is keeping in the middle?
mm-hmm. So if we think about that, that's a really good thing. So there's a couple ways to think about moving pressure along the length of the snowboard, right? One way we can think about it is to like move our body over the board. So if I'm doing like a tail press, right? I'm going to move all my hips over to one side of my board, get as far as I can to my tail, the nose lifts up. And so I've moved my body to make that pressure change, right? And there's another way I can do it is I can move the feet underneath my body. And so that's what I'm doing right here is the pressure's changing because I'm moving the board, albeit I'm still heading in a line. I'm moving what foot's supporting my body every time I go over one of those bumps. And so my back foot will support my body as I go hit the face of the bump, and then my front foot will support my body the moment I go down the back side of the bump. And I'm moving my board underneath me to make that happen. So you can kind of see it here a little bit. So
just to clarify,
yeah.
when you say back side of the bump, did you mean the downhill side of the bump?
Yes, yeah. So the front side, I always think about the front side as like the side I'm looking at. Like that's the side I'm going to hit.
Right.
And the back side is the side I'm going to go down. Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, so this is another exercise that this combined with pivot slips can start to put us into a place where we could actually kind of make it through these with some flow. And so imagine you're doing this exercise and you're like, oh, I'm not sure. I feel like I'm going too fast across the hill. Well, you can actually turn the board into the mountain. So turn the board uphill and go into that skid that we sort of saw in the pivot slips, right? So now we watch this pivot slip guy. And let's go here on his toe side. There he is. On his toe side, his board's turned uphill, so his nose is higher than his tail, and he's skidding down the mountain. So imagine I'm going across the bumps. I'm pumping through, and now I'm getting a little bit too much speed. I can turn my nose uphill and go into a skid, maybe even skid over a couple of bumps before I find my next spot where it feels safe and I feel good to keep moving, to go more and more across the hill. Does that sort of make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Awesome. So to me, these two exercises, being able to traverse the bumps, absorb them, but not only absorb, but use them to bring your legs up to your body and then press your nose down as soon as you can on the downhill side or the back side of the bump. Like if I can develop that skill in combination with this pivot slip, then I'm going to start to put myself into a place where I can actually I have some tools to react to the terrain underneath me. I think about like there are so many different bumps that I've ridden and they're not always very consistent. And so when I think about riding bumps, it's more like there isn't a way, but there's tools that we can use to to take advantage of that feature. And once we do, and we start feeling a place where we can actually flow through the bumps, it's pretty fun. It's really, really fun. And we can start jumping off of bumps and jumping from one bump to the other. And that's kind of my last point too, that one of the things that I liked about both these exercises and I really love about the pivot slip is that when you're in moguls or you're in any sort of terrain, but especially in moguls, one of the hardest things to do is to stop and get going again. So once we stop, then it's really hard to like, okay, now I've got to look where my next turn is going to be and I've got to plan that next turn from a stopped position. It can be pretty challenging to get to make it happen. So I would say as you're building up, one thing, if there's an overarching thing to try to keep in mind, is see if even at a very, very, very slow speed, see if you can keep moving just a little bit. Because when we come to those abrupt stops, there's two things that happen. One thing that happens is our edge pushes against the snow. Momentum basically like the ground pushes us back. So momentum hits the ground pushes us back. It pushes our body back into the mountain. And so essentially we're no longer traveling down. We have forces pushing us up into the mountain in that moment that we stop. So that could be really, really hard to get going again. The second thing that happens too is when we fully come to a stop, like a hard stop, mentally from there, our general idea is, and what I watch a lot of people do is mentally they stop on a bump and they look downhill and they're just staring downhill and trying to figure out where that next turn is. And so it becomes almost like a trust fall. Like I've got to go from heel side to toe side. And so the whole body sends into that toe side turn, and the next one's pretty hard to make. So it kind of becomes this like mental trust fall of like from heel to toe or toe to heel. And so if we can continue even a side slip through the bumps, and if the whole bump run, we just make one turn, but we moved through the whole thing, like that's a win. That's a huge win. And if we can make two turns the next time, then we're winning even harder. That to me, those are the big things I have. Anybody have any more questions about these bumps or any thoughts?
I have two more questions.
Yeah, fire away.
So the first one is if the bump size get bigger, like what would you change to match the terrain?
Awesome. I like that. So say the bumps aren't like what we've been watching there. They're big bumps like you would find at Heavenly on Gun Barrel, right? And they're the
Yeah.
size of a car. I would change my line. So I might not necessarily go over the bumps. I might not try to ride up like fully over a bump, but there might be enough space in the trough for me to still like make turns in the troughs, the spaces between the bumps. But even with that said, when you're making turns between the bumps, there's still going to be that moment where that turns deeper. It kind of has a point to it, and then it's deeper again. And in that moment, that's where I would still do the same load that I'm doing right here. I would still pressure my tail, try to create some rebound energy to send me into the next turn. But I wouldn't necessarily ride over the very top of the bump because it's pretty big.
Okay.
Cool.
My next
Yeah.
question is if it's like icy moguls, and so like skating would be like pretty challenging. So how would you ride these kind of moguls?
Well, so with icy moguls or even like narrow moguls, once again, as a snowboarder, we don't really create that shape, right? So that shape doesn't necessarily match our boards. And it's also like the way that those shapes work, like we don't pivot the same way as skiers do. So skiers have 2 feet really close together and they're just pivoting from the femurs down so they can get a really quick pivot. For us, that's a little bit harder to generate a quick pivot. So I would still skid because I need to skid, but I would most likely try to ride those icy bumps. I would most likely try to ride those very, very balanced. So the big thing that would change in my head, the way I ride them might not be different, but I would be really, really mindful of my speed. So I would try to, if I felt like I was going too fast, I'd bring myself into a slip and I would try to skid and bring my speed down, then bring a little bit of momentum across the hill and go into my next turn. And I'd be super mindful about how I'm aligned over my snowboard. So you saw in this video in the slush, and I'll go back to it. this video, you'll see that in some of my turns, I inclinate a little bit, right? Like the snow is pretty good. I'll go back to this one. This is the actual bump run. But you can see right here, there's some inclination into my turns, right? And because I
Yeah.
can, the snow is soft, it supports me. I'm pushing against the side of a bump. In icy bumps, I'd be much more mindful about that inclination. So I would do my best, the best I can to have really, really soft ankles on my toe side and try to keep my body upright. And on my heel side, I'd try my best to keep a low edge angle and keep my shoulders and hands over my feet. So I reduce inclination because the surface doesn't support me as well.
So on the heel side, how you reduce the edge angle?
How do I reduce the edge angle?
Yeah, like it's very easy. Like heel side, really easy to create the high edge angle, right?
Yeah, totally, totally. So let me see if I can find a better video of that from, or maybe this one from the top. I'll try to pause it at the right place. So this is kind of like maximum turn right here. I know it's really gray and kind of fuzzy, but it looks kind of like a goofy position, but you'll see right here that I am at a relatively high edge angle because I'm pressing into a bump. So not that I've created a high edge angle from the snow, but the bump itself is kind of a wall in front of me. So my feet are plastered against the side of that bump. And to balance, you'll see that I brought my shoulders and everything over my toes to try to get my body on top of that snowboard. So even though my heels are out, my body is way over. And if it was icier, see, I can find another image. So, right. Oh, I just missed it. That's the thing with shorts too. When you scroll away, they start again. But let me get one that's a little bit closer. So right here, you can see right here, my ankles are flexed, my knees are flexed, and I'm actually trying to use my ankles in a way that I'm bringing my knees over my toes just by flexing my ankles. So if I pull my toes up, but I bring my body over my board, it doesn't result in a high edge angle. It results in my knees ending up over the tops of my feet. And so then everything else, like an accordion, stacks above those knees, right? So like if my ankles can pull my knees over my feet, then from there the rest can kind of stack as well. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, I have strong core, by the way. I cannot do that.
What do you mean by a strong core? Tell me.
Like it's hard. Like in this kind of position, it's hard for me to just put my knee on top of my ankle. If I understand what
Gotcha.
you just said.
Gotcha. Another way you can think about it too is when you're on your heel edge, like there's a sensory thing. So if I'm on my heel edge and I can feel like the actual pad of my foot, so I can feel like the pad of my heel,
Mhm.
that's going to be a good indication that I'm on top of my feet. So I'm balanced over my board, over my heel side. So you might be a little bit taller when you're doing that. Um, you can also try loosening your boots a little bit. So if like you feel yourself and no matter what you do, you just end up at a high edge angle, try loosening your boots. Your boots can flex a little bit more. Um, and the other part, and for me, I have a really strong core too. Like, and that's actually what makes this possible is because from my hips to my chest or to the top of my shoulders, I have a lot of strength right there, kind of holding me all together. And then um, my knees and ankles are able to kind of travel under that strong core without it being affected too much. So you don't see my body or my shoulders opening up or flopping around. So
Mhm.
that's that's kind of part of it. And so maybe for you, you also see right here too on my heel edge. I want to show you one other thing that I just noticed. Let me get there. So right here, this is me still on my heel edge, releasing, about to go into my toe side. But you'll see too that you can really see that angle of my ankles bringing my knees over the board just a little bit, my shoulders staying just a little bit past my knees, and my butt staying a little bit past behind my knees, right? And that's sort of about that's that balanced position I'm trying to get into. And I think that if this isn't something that you feel comfortable getting into, it might be something to work on.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Anybody else have any other questions? All right. Well, I'll take that as a win. So, um, I'm always available if you guys do have questions. I love to hear them. You can reach out to me either on our WeChat group if you're part of that, or you can shoot me a video or an email at josh@progressionsessions.fun. Um, I'd love to actually see your guys' video of mogul riding and be able to give you a little bit more pinpointed feedback. But in general, tonight, the biggest things that I wanted to cover were rebound energy. So actually using the face of the bump to allow us to turn. I wanted to cover the extension and retraction. So actively pushing my board into the snow to control speed from the top of the turn all the way through the bottom, through that extension, and then actively pulling my feet up sequentially. So front foot first, back foot next, to reduce the impact that the face of the bump has on me, and also use that energy to propel me into the next turn. So those are the biggest things, that and a pivot slips magic. So if there isn't anything else, I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting for us. This is our YouTube channel right here. It is Progression Sessions 95. There's a video right here. It looks like this one right here. It kind of does a real short version of what we talked about tonight. And thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you.
Josh.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a
Hey,
wonderful
Hey
evening.
Josh, is
Appreciate it.
that where the video is? Progression Sessions 95. What was that
Yeah,
again?
yeah. This is our YouTube channel. Yep.
Okay, sessions. Is that all one word or is it separate?
It's all one word.
Okay. And it's YouTube, right? Is that where all
Yeah.
these recordings are?
Yeah, they're all on YouTube.